Emergent complexities in infinite spaces.
Awesome. I can't wait. So when is the show going to start?
It's going to start this Friday, 9/22 at 5 p.m. and it's going to go until 8 o'clock. And I'm going to give a short little talk at 6:30 about kind of where it all comes from and what it all means.
Awesome. And it's free to attend, right?
Yep, free to attend.
Cool. You guys should come check it out because this is going to be an amazing show. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what this show is composed of and kind of how you came about putting it together.
Sure. Well, let's start with the how. I took a trip in 2014 to Peru. I spent about 3 weeks just kind of traveling around the country, and then I ended in this like kind of shamanic retreat space. And from that, I had made a series of drawings and writings, and I made a couple shows out of that material so far. Depth and kind of specific themes like identified.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what would you say the theme is?
So the theme kind of is basically about this infinite space that I discovered and how all things are kind of connected. For me, it was through this idea of the like great circumstance, which is like sort of just the interrelationships of all things, little and big, and kind of the ability to look backwards through time at all those things and see how things came to be.
That's cool.
And then that relates to these light boxes that I've been making, which basically have layered compositions, and sort of when you look at them, they change when you move around them, and when the light changes, they move and stuff like that. And so, to me, there's kind of a parallel between both the work that I'm making and the experiences that I had.
Wow, that's really cool. So how exactly is the light system set up for these? Like, is it behind the structure or in front?
Yeah, so in the current ones, there are kind of these boxes that are built off of a 4x8 plywood base. And then behind it, there'll be LED lights that are hooked up to kind of sound responsive controllers.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So it should illuminate them and also sort of move with time, like with either conversation or with the music that's in the space.
That's really cool. That's going to be amazing.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Some of the concepts are basically doing to deal with kind of rebirth and trials and the resolution of those trials that happened in my experiences at that retreat as well. So
That's so cool. I just want to know more about the actual experience, like, and how that you went from experience to creating that art, and I can see that it really came from the heart. So I just kind of want to know that connection, like how that happened.
Even before I left, I was kind of tracking like how things were developing, and I knew that I wanted to make something out of it even before I left. And so I think because of that, I kept things in mind that sort of have continued to develop in the background. And as clarities come, I've started to define those things more specifically. And so there are 4 themes in this like mini show that I identified, and one is basically like sort of like this meeting of the snake and the infinite connection of like feelings and how all things are sort of connected in a sort of an emotional sense, not just a physical sense. Then there's this trials and tribulations part where it's like inevitable failure and disappointment, abandonment, invisibility, being left behind, like dealing with these sorts of ingrained fears that I had that I had taken with me, and I think I knew those things going into the experience, but I didn't give them the priority that I think that they really had, and so through these experiences, they were sort of uncovered as being much more important in my life than I had given them credit for.
It was kind of like a way to look inside yourself, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And to sort of like connect to information I already knew, but maybe was not privileging and not like really paying attention to, like sort of like pretending like it's no big deal, but like really it's a big deal. And then the final one is just like for me, it was like the death of the anxious self and the rebirth as like a new, more confident person with a better understanding of the world. And that's where the transition of the Luke spelling comes from. In that process, I sort of discovered a new name that was related to the old name.
Cool.
And then the Luke is really sort of an identification of that transition and the complex nature of still the anxious self that's still, even though it's like sort of dying and being digested by me, it's still there. So like in this transition process, it's like it doesn't matter if you there's no change for you, but the change for me is important.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of nice. Do you think that the people who view your art will be able to experience that journey to a certain extent, but for themselves, in a way, will it kind of help them maybe or inspire them to maybe?
I hope so. I mean, I especially in the I hope it inspires people to take their own journey. I think I feel a little bit careful about the idea that someone might be able to discover like a new truth for themselves just by looking at my experience. But I think conveying how powerful it is for me is the goal. And if I could inspire them to take the time to take a journey like that, and whatever it looks like for them, they don't need shaman.
Yeah.
But for me, that was necessary, but it might not be for them. It might be different. It probably should be different, you know. But it's about finding something that can catapult you to the new version of yourself that you know, have been maybe avoiding.
Yeah. So you said that you knew from the beginning that you wanted to turn this experience into some type of artistic representation, but did you ever experience any fear that it wouldn't work out? Did you have like expectations, or was it completely open?
No, I mean, it was completely open. I wanted to document it even if it failed. So I would have made something out of it regardless. So I don't think that I knew that it was going to work. I kind of felt like either way, it would either work and I would find something amazing that I've been waiting for, or it wouldn't work and I'd have some sort of closure, like this like spiritual thing isn't for me. Like there's this, it's just the factual world and that's it. Like that was kind of the bookends. Like either I'm going to have this experience that means something to me, or I'm going to confirm that for me, it's all about like science in the physical world, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I found the spiritual piece in a way. It just happens to be basically my own piece, and I'm not trying to sort of convince people to join me in that way, but like it's just a personal experience of understanding.
That's awesome. So did you see any other like works of art that inspired you specifically to go to Peru and seek out a shaman, or was that just something that you've been wanting to do already?
Honestly, that part is kind of just like coincidental. So I had a friend who'd done something similar, although he did it in a much more kind of natural way, maybe more orchestrated by another person, and they sort of pieced it together and did their own thing. The retreat was a little bit more formal than that. And I just heard about it from him, and I actually kind of actively tried not to seek out a lot of information around the ceremonies because I kind of wanted to go into them blind, which is sort of difficult with like the internet and YouTube and all that stuff. Like you want to look at it, you want to dig in, but I just didn't want somebody else's imagery to like get stuck in my head and to like, you know, I don't know, have to have a spirit animal because someone else saw a spirit animal. Like, I didn't
completely agree. Yeah, that's cool. So what are these cards that you have right there?
So for the first couple of years, well, the year before I left and then the year after, I did kind of these cards with just different kind of writings on them that had to do with, you know, kind of what I was thinking about at the time. And then the images on the backs of these ones are all from drawings that I'd taken or made while I was in Peru. And these form the foundation of the 4 pieces that are in the show this time too. So I like to think about them as sort of sort of reflections, digital echoes, mirror images, but where something changes each time. And so there's some new kind of actual. Most of the time, I draw kind of non-objective explorations, like places to imagine things, and they don't really have anything in them, but they just look like they do. But in this series, this time, there are actual real things that I put in there, real imagery, real symbolism, and so this is a bit of a new kind of leaf for me to turn over, and I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool, especially with the light. I haven't seen yet, so it's going to be really exciting. I can't wait.
Thanks.
Do you think the Omaha community is pretty receptive to this kind of artistic exploration, or?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, I've always felt a little disconnected from the Omaha scene. Just I'm not natively from Omaha, but I've never felt excluded either.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably a bit of a stretch for a lot of what people are looking for, but I think in terms of stories and adventures, I think everyone could use a little bit of color and a little bit of things to reach for. So I'm hoping that people find it interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with Omaha is that we have some really great artists here, but there's not a lot of us, and sometimes it's hard to find each other.
Yeah.
And that's why Cali Commons is so crucial, because this is a place where we can get together and find each other and share our work with each other, which is so important to progress and just the community as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% agree.
Yeah. That's why we do it, guys. Cool.
Well, do you think we should call it?
Yeah, we can call it. Just come on out. Don't be afraid. Do not be shy. Just come check it out. Just come hang out. You know you want to.
Yep. Friday, 9/22, 5 to 8. Artist Talk at 6:30. And I'm sure the show will be up a few times between Friday and the next artist coming around, but you won't be able to catch the Artist Talk if you don't come Friday. So
yeah, and also keep checking the websites, because we have events going on constantly. So
yep,
any day of the week, you never know, something could be going on. There's always stuff going on, so check it out.
Cool.
See you guys later.
Thanks.